Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the first episode of the Double Large podcast. Now, in this episode, I was in conversation with Dr. Nirepjeet Parmar, who is an expert in Sikh history and has a doctorate specifically in gender studies pertaining to Sikh history. So, her PhD is in the role of women in Sikh history and Sikh scriptures. And through this podcast, we have asked her questions and tried to gain her views on certain aspects of Sikh history in general and the role of women in those old times and how that helps us gain a little bit of perspective about gender roles in today's times. Now, in her daily life, Dr. Nirepjeet Parmar is an educationist and a professor of history, which is why I thought she was the perfect person to talk to about these things. And without any further ado, please go have a look at the episode and I hope you enjoy it. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for giving me your time.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity as well.
Oh, please, ma'am. This is a pleasure for me because it is very difficult to find people who are so immersed in the topics that we're going to be discussing today.
Right.
And just as a background, I want to let the audience know a little bit about you.
Right.
So, we're sitting here today with Dr. Nirepjeet Parmar,
Yes.
who is an aficionado or an expert on Sikh history. And if you look at her specific credentials, she has a doctorate that is aimed particularly towards the role of women in Sikh history and Sikh scriptures, which is why I wanted to bring her on the show for the first episode, because I think it is very important, number one, to discuss Sikh history in particular and the role it has played in India's history recently. And secondly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the role of women in that history, because in today's climate, the role of women and their rights are of great importance to all of us. And I think Nirep ma'am is a great example of what women can achieve today. So
Thank you.
we want to know her views on the matter. But
Right.
ma'am, before we get into all of that,
Yeah.
the question that I want to ask you before we talk about Sikh history itself is related to your background. So, what was it that made you choose Sikh history and the role of women in Sikh history particularly as a subject to pursue?
Yeah, I would love to answer that. In fact, this was the first question even my guide asked me, why do you want to do a research work on Sikh women? Because there are so many other things that history has to offer. You can choose architecture, you can choose historiography, you can choose sources, there are so many other things, cultures, right, economic systems. But then women's issues specifically have always interested me. I think being a girl or a woman myself, this is something that you connect to automatically, especially when you live in a society which is patriarchal, even if your family isn't, but the society is. And a lot of it filters down to you through maybe other people's experiences or what you see in the general scenario, what is happening, or what you read in the newspapers, or what comes to you in the form of stories or your course or your schooling, or when you go to college. I think it's more about connecting and feeling deeply about something and then trying to do something in that field. So women have been largely misunderstood, misinterpreted, and there are very wrong connotations in which they have been publicized or made to believe that women are like this or women are like that. So there were lots of these things playing in my mind, when I was in college, when I started working, or when I met people. And there are some set stereotypes that people have, that okay, this is not what women do, and this is not what is made for women, this is not supposed to be done by women. And all of this, I think over a period of time, it keeps building up, and then you decide to seek answers. So it's more of a self-discovery for me, where I wanted to actually seek answers. So when I met my guide, that was more of an informal meeting with sir, and then later on I got to know that he was taking research scholars, and in his capacity as a university professor, he was a guide. And when I spoke to him on such issues, I was looking for answers. So there he also started developing an interest in the topic, and he decided that okay, let's do a research work on this, and especially because there is a dearth of secondary sources in this area of study, gender studies within Sikhism. So he decided to use my interest and my strong involvement in women's issues to further this, just do our role in it, doing one such study.
Ma'am, just a
Right.
slight personal tangent on this.
Hmm.
So you spoke about how women are portrayed in society, and in your college days, I guess it would have been a bigger issue than it is today. So what I would like to ask you, and you can tell me your opinion on this, and but the question that I specifically want to ask you is, was there a level of pressure that you felt as a young lady who was a college student and who wanted to pursue certain fields or certain fields of study? Was there a level of pressure that you felt from your extended family, for example, or the people around you to push you in a particular direction that you might not want to be in?
No, actually, see, I have been more fortunate there, more blessed because I have lived in Mumbai.
Hanji.
So Mumbai is a very progressive city. It's 20 years ahead, I guess, of the rest of India. So when I was in college back then in 1992, 93 to 95 when I did my graduation. So my family in fact did not put any such pressure on me. We were free to choose any field that we wanted to study, and I was more inclined towards arts because see, we didn't have Google, we didn't have this kind of an influx of information that is there today. So the only source of information, authentic information, was either your parents or your teachers, right? Now teachers back then were not as friendly as teachers are today.
Of course.
So you couldn't even imagine approaching your teacher for personal advice or ask them about which courses you should do. They will simply answer you according to your academic record, where you can't do this and you can't do this. So there was more of a negative outcome that would come.
Hanji.
Now we were very clear whom to ask and whom not to ask. And if you went to your parents were very clear, whatever you can study, you take it.
Yeah.
Because you will have to study on your own. So wherever you can devote time, you can put in the effort, you go ahead and do it. Now there I had a clarity there that if I take up sciences demand a lot of focus study, and it is more like sacrificing everything else, and 15 hours minimum, that's what everybody had told me. 14 to 15 hours minimum you will have to put in if you want to be a doctor or an engineer, and that way. Commerce I never understood, because for me commerce was equivalent to maths, and maths was something I never understood. So I didn't have the guts to take up commerce, because I knew I can't work with stats or maths or economics and all that. So the only option with me was humanities. We call them arts in Mumbai. So arts was something that was interesting to me. I could learn it at my own pace, and I could choose the subjects that would be interesting to me. So for example, I want to study history, I want to study sociology, I like psychology, and there were subjects like logic, labor laws. I found all this very interesting. So naturally I thought I can do a better job here. So that's how I picked up my subjects in college, and then majored in history, because again I was told that English will fetch you a job, but English will not make you happy if you're not too much into it, pursuing a degree in English. And then I thought history makes me more happy. Political science was something that I really liked to study, but my college didn't give me an option to do a majors in political science. So out of the available options, the best option that I picked up was history.
Okay.
And I still don't regret it. I'm so happy I picked this up.
Ma'am, another question that is slightly personal that I want to ask you is that a lot of people might not know that you are the daughter of, to me, a legendary investigative journalist. That
Yeah.
is Mr. Baljeet Parmar.
Right.
So you spoke about growing up in Bombay, ma'am, and like I said, you are his daughter, so your experiences might have been quite different.
Very different.
I do not want to get into every little detail, because we have spoken of this before, and then
Yeah.
this podcast will become entirely about that.
About that. Yeah.
But the one thing that I want to ask you is, as a woman who was the daughter of a very open-minded and let's say a very liberal man in a time where men did not think that way. Can you tell me one particular thing in a short few sentences that your father taught you as a child, which has helped you as a woman through your life?
I think this is important. Everybody needs to know that. My father has given me 2 lessons in life, the shortest explanation possible. One was never be guilty about something,
Okay.
right? One, he was very clear that if you've done something, done it, never be guilty about it. So don't carry guilt feelings in life. Secondly, he was always somebody who supported that bring out your talents to the maximum, you know. If you strongly feel that I can do this, then do it. I mean, there's no reason to look for approval or seek answers from somebody else. Go ahead and do it, like, right? And very importantly, fight your own battles.
Of course.
From a very early age, you know, he's been very clear that my children should not be running back to me with small problems. Try to solve them on your own, find your way. I think that is what people today call a 21st century skill, problem solving.
Exactly.
Right? So that is, we are blessed that way. Like, he tried to instill that in us long before these terms were even coined, problem solving and all of this. So we've been very fortunate, very lucky, because we had a very different kind of an exposure, because he was a journalist, and journalism also, he is a crime reporter. So we had a very different kind of an access to things, and we saw them so closely, and there's this other side of the coin that we continuously saw.
Yes,
and first-hand experiences, because he was always on the job, always outgoing. I think sincerity, honesty to the profession, and being so dedicated to your work is something I think I have picked up from my father. He's been totally into his job, 24/7. He was that dedicated. And I think this is where I strongly believe these values, this culture comes from your home.
What I find very impressive about your relationship with your father, and I think I've told you this before off camera, is that the things that we think about women today or teaching our young women today are the things that he was teaching you at that particular time. Which is very impressive, because it shows you that the man was thinking 25, 30 years ahead of his time.
Of course, he always had the security factor in mind, and he knew how society thinks or believes about women. But then that didn't stop him from encouraging us, you know. But then he was always clear enough to point it out to us that, see, this is how the society perceives, this is how the society works. But then you have to do your bit, you know, being in these kind of people.
Of course.
So he always gave us the other side of it as well. So I think that helps.
Now, ma'am, I think we've spoken about your background to a reasonable degree.
Right.
And before I get into that, I get immersed into that, I want to shift to the true intent of this podcast. And I wanted to ask you what role the Sikh gurus had played in their time, and what kind of an impact they had. And most importantly, if we say recreate the geopolitical and social situations of those times. Say, for example, if we go back to 1469, which is Guru Nanak's time, and we try and imagine how he had an effect on those times, what would your perception be of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, first and foremost?
See, firstly, whatever I know is based on starting when you're young, you start with popular hearsay, what you hear. And then as you grow, when you go into reading and extensive reading, that is where you are dealing with factual information. Now, history, whenever we are talking about the past, right? History is a study of the past, and then you trace those changes to the present times. Now, when you go back to 1469, the birth year of the first Guru, what you try and understand is that we have two kinds of sources there. Because in the study of history, sources are very important. If I'm digging into the past, then when I'm taking out things from the past, I need to classify them into primary and secondary evidences. Primary is first-hand information, and that information comes from Guru Nanak's writings in the Guru Granth Sahib.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
So that becomes our main primary source. So when we are looking for his teachings or his philosophy or his thought process, that is best reflected through his own writings. the genuine writings of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, which in turn is reflected in the Guru Granth Sahib, the holy book that we refer to and we believe in, because that is the source of all information for us. Now this is exactly what I started out with, that primary sources are giving us a lot of information, but what has prevented people from further adding on by making an account of secondary sources? So secondary sources are very less. Secondary sources in the form of writers of that time, contemporary authors of that time, or other poets of that time.
So, ma'am, before
why have they not written?
Before we continue, could you name one or two contemporary authors from that time that you think were who gave good information of what was happening in those times?
Maybe, see, naming, I don't want to name anybody in particular because that would become a sort of an accusation on them that
Yes,
they didn't write about women.
Okay.
And why did they not write about women?
Okay.
I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is that maybe for them at that particular time, other issues were more important.
Okay.
Women's issues were never highlighted. Women were never actually considered an important part of the society at that time. The social milieu that we are talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
15th century, right? It is a very narrow-minded orthodox society,
Yes.
in which women are kept at home, right? They're not even allowed to go out. There is a veil, there is a parda system, there is sati is being practiced in that society, and there are lots of social ills that go against the women.
Okay.
Now in this kind of a society, I can't say that people were not wanting to write. Maybe they were wanting to write, but see that what do you say, that confidence to write and go against the orthodox elements is not what everybody has.
Of course, ma'am.
So obviously Guru Nanak broke that thing, that norm
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
society, where he decided to speak for women, on behalf of the women. He included them. The very fact that he's talking about women and their issues, and very simple references in the Gurbani are like, he talks to them as equals.
Yes.
That God is equal for both.
Of course.
Right? For the men as well as the women in his words. Right? And then there are many references where he talks about God himself not being a man, but he being made up of both the men and the women. So I think this is where he has for the first time included women into the social system, because people had just kept women as somebody who is like in the Varna ashram system that was made. Women were given the status of the Shudras. At what status the society places the Shudras, at that status they are placing the women. So everything that is not allowed for Shudras and the women. See, irrespective of which caste they belong to. So in such a society which gives you such a derogatory position, there is one person who's talking about them as being equal contenders in their search for God. Something like moksha or nirvana or salvation is supposed to be given to the women as well. This is what Guru Nanak says.
And that was not an ideology that people prescribed to before that.
See, they did not openly speak.
Okay.
Now we can't say that there were no more open-minded people, or there were not any more liberal-minded people apart from him. Obviously that is not possible, but either they did not have the confidence to speak in that kind of an orthodox system. They were afraid of the repercussions of the society. Maybe liberalism must have been practiced by them within their homes,
Yes.
but outside the four walls, you didn't have anybody coming out in the open and speaking with so much of confidence, with such logical arguments that people like Guru Nanak gave.
Okay.
So according to him, he said that women are equal contenders, not just in praying and worship, but also they can also occupy equal spiritual positions. They can be spiritual leaders as well, just as the men are. Now, speaking about this in the 15th century is not a joke.
Of course, ma'am.
Today we can talk about a lot of issues, but then the time period that we are referring to, you can't say these things. Society does not allow you. But then he had his logic. He had his rational statements to give in support of his arguments.
Actually, ma'am, even today, if you speak against certain people, you are cut off.
I think this is what we need to learn from these leaders. Like, speaking is not a problem, but speak with facts. And if you have a logical reasoning to give, I don't think the other person ever objects to it. I think this is one way of dealing with
That's true.
people who confront you
That's
later,
true.
right?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
another thing I want to ask you about Guru Nanak is, considering the fact that there were very well established religions in not just in Indian society but in societies and civilizations all over the world, and Sikhism is relatively, I would say, out of all the major religions, it is the youngest.
Youngest, yes.
So, ma'am, to a certain extent, do you believe that we can correlate religion to, say, something in modern times like software, where the older softwares need updates?
This is a very good example, yes.
And
updated version.
yeah, so sometimes I look at it in a manner that Sikhism is the newest update to religion, which is why in some ways it is the most liberal.
Very true. See, our Sikh gurus have been very far-sighted, and they've not thought of just that particular time. They have actually gone beyond and had a futuristic vision.
Yes.
So somewhere they have already foreseen in that age, about 700 years back, that this is the role that women will be eventually playing in the times to come, and they decided to stand up and speak for them right at that time. And yes, of course, because Hinduism is the oldest religion in the world, right? Then after that comes Buddhism, Jainism, and then you've got Christianity, then Islam, and then finally Sikhism. So Sikhism had a lot to compare with. It already had a lot of religions to already see, and then zero in on the problems.
Yes.
Where there were problems, whether it is the position of the lower caste people or the status of the women, I think that is where they could compare. So they have tried to eliminate those issues which were not promoting equality. Sikhism, I think, is, in the words of Guru Nanak, all about creating an egalitarian society.
Yes, ma'am.
And in that society, he is including the lower caste, he is including the untouchables, he is including the women as well, right? Because he feels society cannot exclude these people. When you're talking about a society, you're talking about everybody.
Of course.
Now, this is where one very important thing is, since we are talking about religions, now every religion gets reflected through its community of followers, right? And that those followers incorporate a certain culture that they strongly believe in. That culture comes from religion.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So religion has a very strong responsibility. The purpose of religion is to give you strength. See, today we are at present talking about so many kinds of mental issues. Mental health has become so important. It is being spoken about at many levels. But then religion is supposed to deal with those issues.
Yes.
See, this is where you derive strength. Your mental strength comes from your religious beliefs. Now, in those beliefs, if you are targeting a certain section of the population, see the difference between theory and practice. Now, theory, no religion's theory tells you to discriminate with any group of people whatsoever. Theory is perfect, but the problem comes at the practical level. Now, even if we are talking about the Sikh religion, everything being so perfect within the religion, right? Women being given equality, equal rights, equal privileges as compared to the men. See, when we are talking about women's issues, we are clearly talking about women's position as compared to men's position.
Yes.
Right? Now, men traditionally by birth, just because they are born as a man, right? They inherit certain rights and privileges, which a woman does not. Right? So religion is not discriminating. I think at the community level, in some religions, there is a discrimination that is believed to exist and they promote it as well. But when you talk about the Sikh community, at the community level, this discrimination is not promoted. It is not fanned. But yes, discrimination exists amongst the Sikhs at the family level.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
That is something that I was about to mention.
Yes.
Because I have personally witnessed this as well. And not just when it comes to women in particular, but the core of the Sikh religion, as far as I have been able to grasp through my study of Sikh philosophy, is to build an egalitarian system.
Egalitarian system.
And what I see is, even in my own family, there are older members of my extended family who are quite racist or casteist, right? And we see this in every family, whether it is a Hindu family or a Sikh family. It's
more family based perspectives.
Yes.
The community, at the community level, these perspectives do not exist.
Yes.
Do not exist at all. because the religion does not promote. So there is a certain kind of equality, egalitarian culture that the community promotes. But then what about individual families? It has to filter down till that level.
Yeah.
But individually, people will perceive that in a different way. Right?
I think there's a level of hypocrisy also.
Hypocrisy is
Because-
there, and sometimes people don't want to change. See, changing is very difficult.
Yeah.
Gurus could change, but what prevents an individual from changing?
It's
We are not able to change.
it's that ego element, I
Ego
guess.
element, and then I think this is very sad that within a family, you don't want to see your daughters or the women members of your family progressing. You see it as a threat to your existence as a man. I think this is what prevents them. Religious angle is not there over here.
Okay.
There's no religious angle here.
Okay. So, ma'am, if we move forward from Guru Nanak Dev in particular,
The rest of the Sikh gurus, the 9 successive gurus that
So,
we have, they carried forward
just
the legacy.
before we get into that,
Yeah.
so of course we can't talk in detail about all of the Sikh gurus.
Maybe sometime later we can do that.
Yes, but there are 2 Sikh gurus that I would like to speak about in a little bit of detail. So if you can give us an overview of, say, Guru Angad, Guru Amar Das, and so on and so forth, till Guru Harkrishan, who was the youngest. So number one, I would like to ask you, when you arrive at that juncture, what Guru Harkrishan's youth and that new element in the Sikh Guru's progression brought to the table. And after that, yes, I want to talk about Guru Teg Bahadur and Guru Gobind Singh Ji, because they have, in my opinion, historically and philosophically, I think they have had a very strong impact, not just on Sikh culture, but in
Yeah, see,
general as
again,
well.
when you're talking about the Sikh gurus, there is the spiritual element, the spiritual heights that the gurus took the community to, from the first guru to the 5th guru.
Yes.
But then the martyrdom of the 5th guru changed everything.
Okay.
You have the Sikh community totally taking a 360-degree turn from there, because Guru Hargobind Singh Ji, the 6th guru of the Sikhs, he decided to form a military.
And he was the first one.
He was the first one to do it, because he had seen the martyrdom of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and he wanted the Sikhs to take up arms in addition to their spiritual side. So the Miri Piri policy that he initiated. So I think that is where they have been totally looking at what needs to be done in the moment, the problem solving element that we are talking about. And from then onwards, the community takes on a militant fervor, right? So they go into militarism, and of course for protection, self-protection. So from there onwards, there is a twist in the thoughts. So it's more about protecting the community, under which you have the women as well, actively participating.
As warriors,
As
scholars.
yes, as scholars. And initially during the first 5 gurus, again they are encouraged to take up the spiritual side, which does not happen in most of the other religions in India
Hanji.
at that time, right?
Yes.
In a very open way. So if
Even today, ma'am, there are issues in the south where certain temples do not allow women
women to enter. In fact, even after the Supreme Court's decision, even after that, there was such a big case recently where
Yes.
they didn't allow the women to go inside the temple.
Yes.
So a lot of orthodoxy, superstitious element there, and this is something that has not happened with the Sikhs.
Yes.
Right, because from day one we have seen, even historically, if you compare the women, the Sikh women, to other cultures, the Western cultures or wherever, there people have had to, especially women, have had to fight and struggle for political rights, for a lot of other privileges that they wanted, to be treated as citizens in the first place. But within Sikhism, there was no such thing. From day one, they have been given equal access
Yes.
to spiritual leadership paths of worshipping, or whether it is seva in the langar. I think the second guru, Guru Angad Dev Ji's wife, Mata Khivi Ji,
Yes,
she
ma'am.
was, in fact, we attribute the success of the langar pratha to her, because she is considered to be the one who played a very important role in expanding that community kitchen service. She went all out and gave all of that she had, selfless service, to make it a success. A service that was initiated by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, carried forward by her husband, and then she played an important role in it. And then the later Sikh gurus as well, whether we talk of Bibi Pani ji, or the later on, whoever has come, as whether they are the guru's wives or the guru's daughters, they've all played a very important role. So they are the ones who qualify as exemplary Sikh women, right? And then when the Qaum becomes more into picking up arms in self-protection and then becoming the warrior community, again we have women coming and leading. Mai Pago, right? A
Yes,
very famous example that we have.
We've all heard
The
of.
Muksar War, she led 40 Sikh warriors, right, against 20,000 Mughals. So her name is there in history, and later on she goes on to become one of the bodyguards of the 10th Guru, right?
Ma'am, I have a couple of questions that are slightly related to Guru Hargobind, and in general the second question is related to all of the Gurus. So the first one is, I personally, I'm not a religious person, I know you know that, but I am very interested in religious philosophy, not just Sikh philosophy, but all sorts of philosophies, because I think at the end of the day religion is allegorical philosophy that helps you live your life in a better manner.
In a better manner, yeah.
And in my perspective, any religious philosophy it tells you to be peaceful and not create conflict.
Exactly, and the purpose of the religion is to give you answers that you're looking for.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
So ma'am, my question in particular is, I conform to the philosophy of Miri, Piri, and I genuinely believe in it.
Exactly.
But for the viewers, and as somebody who would not promote violence, how would you explain Miri Piri to a layman?
See, there are times as a layman when I have to keep my peace of mind. That's my spiritual side.
Yes.
So out of my 10 gurus, I then attach myself or align myself to Guru Nanak.
Yes.
Right? But there are times when I will have to stand up for something.
Yes.
Right? Then being Nanak will not help me. Right? As a layman. So there I have to become Guru Gobind.
Yes.
You understand?
The ultimate warrior.
Ultimate warriors. I see, if the concept there is, if we do not stand up for our rights, okay, then who else will?
Of course.
And that is the reason why they could connect to the conditions of the women.
Yes.
And they decided to treat them as equals, because injustice is not being tolerated, whether it is from the Mughals or from the invaders, right? So injustice also will not be tolerated against the lower caste or the women.
Yes.
So this is, I think, one community which has got its lessons right from the Guru Granth Sahib, from the Gurus, from the words of the Gurus, where they see themselves as protectors. So you're going to protect everybody, all weaker sections in the society.
Ma'am,
Right?
my second question is about all of the Gurus. So all of the Gurus had wives, all of the Gurus had families, they had children. And generally when we look at religious philosophy, it is believed in many religions that you should eliminate the family element or that attachment from the world.
Should forego everything.
Yes, yes. And to a certain extent, there is a reason for that, because attachment is the root of all suffering.
Yeah.
And if you release those attachments, you are likely to focus on something more spiritually inclined. So ma'am, why was it that the Sikh Gurus thought it was correct to focus on their families as well?
I think because a lot of them became gurus after being married.
Okay.
Right? That is when the enlightenment happened. They were already into a family life, they had children. But that apart, that's not one of the major reasons. Because again, the same thing comes here. They have had the other religions to compare to.
Yes.
So they could see, when you have 5 things to compare, you get a lot of clarity about what is the appropriate way to go about it. Now there are some more philosophies here when we talk of attachment, detachment. When you talk about the Bhakti saints,
Yes, ma'am.
then within the Bhakti saints you have Shankaracharya, you have Ramanuja, right? So there again they have their philosophies, Vishishta Advaita, Advaita, Shankaracharya's Advaita. So where Shankaracharya tells you to detach yourself from everything, this concept of Moh Maya and being aloof.
Yes.
Now this Moh Maya is not promoted by the Sikh Gurus as well, because they have preached a life of simplicity, right? And a life where you're very humble. So detachment is being preached here.
Yes.
But detachment from family life is not promoted.
Okay.
Right? So especially Guru Nanak's sons, they followed a policy of detachment. But then Guru Nanak never promoted that. He was not in favor of that. He strongly believed that a person can reach God by being a family man.
Yes,
you
and
can still pray to God.
Having a holistic approach to life.
Yeah, because then otherwise what kind of a society would you create? Everybody who wants to go out in search of God will start leaving families and going.
Yes.
So, see, you would be denouncing your families, and as a result, what kind of a society will you create? I think this is where the futuristic element comes.
Yes.
Right? Whereas the family, we believe, is the backbone of society. So you're going to be attacking the backbone itself.
Yes.
So it is here that our gurus have been very, very objective, and they have told us that, see, you don't need to go anywhere. You can do your worldly duties. You be there in the worldly affairs, but at the same time detach from the baggage, excess baggage. Right? So take care of your family and be a good person, a human. The humanity concept is being promoted, and at the same time connect to God. Right? Your ultimate, see, what I understand is, when I talk to people also, that a person, a man before he is born is a human, man, woman, before one is born, goes through an innumerable cycle of births and deaths.
Yes.
That is what the Bani says, right?
Yes.
The concept of rebirth. Now you don't know what you have been born in your previous births as, whether you were born as a fly or a snake or a whatever, whichever animal. So, but of course, human to ek hi hota hai na.
हाँ जी.
So other births are all animals or insects or birds or whatever. So what the gurus believe is that you got this birth as a human, you're born as a human to focus on praying to God. Right?
To focus on elevating yourself.
Elevating yourself, go above and be in sync with that ultimate reality. And because as an animal you could not see God, but as a human you see God. So be in the world, live in the world, but detach yourself from all those things, because see, when you have Maya or ego, or you get attached to worldly material comforts, then you go far away from God. That is what the Bani says.
Yes.
So in that context, detach yourself from those things so that you're closer to God. If you're simple and you're humble, egoless, right, you're in a floating stage, then you are closer to God.
Now, ma'am, the last three gurus, right? I want you to give me a very short, brief description of Guru Harkrishan, because he was very young, and as, say, any person would have this question in their head, how did such a young man become a guru, and how was that accepted by society, and what effect did that have?
See, gurus, traditionally the Gurgati has been passed on by the earlier gurus, and then we've had this initiation, the group of elders,
and
taking
sorry,
major
I'm sorry
decisions.
to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
just another slight tangent. What was the basis of passing on the Gurgati?
It was mostly your personal attributes,
Okay.
and how detached you are and how close you are to the teachings of Nanak,
Okay.
and basically your commitment to the society. Again, those same qualities, being egoless and being in a selfless state, and strongly believing in the philosophy of the earlier gurus,
Yes.
and how well you are putting that into practice. I think these are the factors that were seen.
Okay, so Guru Harkrishan achieved that level at a very young age.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
And he also died at a very young age,
He
right?
died also at a very young age, and then there are cases where he has been promoting, in the little lifespan that he had, he has been promoting women's studies. He promoted girls to go and study.
Okay.
Learn the
Which was not
Gurmukhi.
the norm at that time.
Not the norm.
Yes.
Learn the Gurmukhi and then go into more reading, and then start reading the scriptures, and pursue an education. Education at this time, we have to keep in mind, is religious instruction, which was missing in the other religions, because when we are talking about, let's say, Hinduism or even Islam, the contemporary religions of the time, women were learning to read and write. They were learning the alphabet in hiding.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So unless you had this is what your books tell you, right? This is not something based on hearsay. This is factual evidence
Yes.
that women were not granted access to education. Only boys could. Even if it is religious education, they were not granted access. And in fact, learning to read the alphabet was only dependent on whether you had a liberal father at home, or an elder brother, or a husband, since they were married off at a very early age. So if
and
your husband,
that itself was very risky, even for
that was risky
the male
within the
figure.
house, of course.
Yes.
So they used to read, and the male members would teach them in hiding, secrecy of the night.
Yes.
So learning to, and there are examples where women have cut these scriptures, taken the alphabets to their brothers, asked them what is this, and then the brother has told them this is ka, kha, whatever, and then they have joined it and learned on their own.
See, ma'am, that is so fascinating, right? Because
Yeah.
Today,
Those women were great.
Yeah, we are at a stage today
Yeah.
where men and women can go on the internet and they can pull the most scandalous things.
You can
off,
learn anything on
right?
YouTube, just need a tutorial.
Yes.
And you can learn whatever you want to. And sadly, when you have access to every kind of a tutorial that exists in the world, there is a degeneration of education.
Yes.
And
But,
at this time, when you prevent certain people from studying,
they want to study.
You hear stories of Eklavya in hiding, he wants to learn.
Yes.
Right? And you have women who are learning secretly, and Muslim women, a little bit progressive religion again, where they were allowed to learn the Quran.
Okay.
Only the Quran Sharif, right?
Yes.
Nothing else. But they made one step progress. So Sikhism started with equal educational rights. Go study, no problem.
Yes.
Right?
Ma'am, what would you say about Guru Teg Bahadur?
I think his life was more filled with challenges of all kinds. By this time, we had invited the wrath of the Mughals like never before. So they had another, the priority question changes now. Right, he's heading the community.
Yes.
So he's a role model for the community. So his focus changes there.
Okay.
Right, there we have been mostly living like vagabonds, I think, from one place to another place to another. So you're not having a settled life.
Yes.
Right?
Ma'am, in my perspective, I think, so just to give it a little bit of context, I did a video a few days ago, about 9 or 10 days ago, about the ruling party's agenda for the next elections, which are coming in 2024.
Right.
So one of the things that I spoke of there, which I picked up from the Prime Minister's speech, was that he spoke of the British.
Yeah.
And of course, like all Indians, he does not appreciate what the British did, and neither do I. I'm sure you don't either.
Sure.
But the one thing that I spoke of in that video was that instead of building up a victimhood mentality, we should look at the British as a bad experience that improved us and brought us together as a nation.
That never happened, no? See, look at the corporate culture today.
Yeah.
That exists.
Yes.
What is the difference between the British and these people?
Yes, but ma'am, the point I was trying to get at was in the case of Guru Teg Bahadur. So I correlate Guru Teg Bahadur with the ultimate sacrifice and suffering to leave behind something better. So do you think Guru Teg Bahadur was, he was that experience which Sikhism needed to become the ultimate martial
I think so. I think the ultimate martial calm status that we have actually comes from this family.
Yes.
Right? He's the one who gave it all selflessly without blinking an eyelid.
If I'm not wrong, he was also the father of
Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And from there you find Guru Gobind Singh Ji, then his sons, right?
Yes.
The martyrdom begins.
Yes.
Right? And even today, I think this factor is very strongly ingrained in the minds, hearts and souls of all Sikhs.
Yes.
We are forever ready to sacrifice, right? We don't think twice. I mean, whether it is any natural calamity or anything, we are the first ones to go and offer help. I think this element has come from the Gurus.
Yes.
Right. Especially the later Gurus.
So ma'am, another question that I want to ask you about Guru Gobind Singh Ji is, to me, of course, it is wrong to pick favorites, but I would say to me, Guru Gobind Singh Ji is the embodiment of what I think a person should be.
Exactly.
And I think he is the ultimate expression of both stoicism, but kind-heartedness, a spiritual enlightenment, but with the aspect of being the ultimate warrior, right? So what do you think about Guru Gobind Singh Ji in particular, and why is his impact slightly above the rest of the Gurus? Because when we talk about the Gurus, we usually talk about Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind,
Guru Gobind
right?
Singh, yeah.
So what is it that makes him so special?
I think because of the way he shaped the community, the way we are today, giving us an identity
Yes.
as a community, the credit goes to him. He initiated the Khalsa Panth, and then he gave us certain instructions to follow that I think make him stand apart from the rest. The 5 symbols of Sikhism, or whether it is how to lead your life after him, and then placing all authority into the Guru Granth Sahib, the holy book,
Instead of a person.
instead of a person. I think this is where I think the most far-sighted was Guru Gobind Singh. He could visualize the challenges that lay ahead,
Yes.
and he didn't want the community to just disintegrate. So the strength that eventually the community got came from the 10th Guru. And he was equally stern in his instructions, very clear that okay, this is this and this is how it should be.
Yes.
And I think that has worked perfectly for us. He could chart out a future for
what
us.
our future was.
A future for us, yeah, something that maybe was the need of the time when it came to his times. So he had to do it, and he did it.
What is the controversy? The question is, what is the controversy around the Dasm Granth, and what do you think is the Dasm Granth's significance?
See, Dasam Granth is believed to be a compilation of the writings of the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, as I told you, whenever we pick up a source as an authentic source of study, there are a lot of elements that are taken into consideration, and this is decided by the community because decision making powers have been placed in the Gurmat,
Yes.
right? The Sangat. Now, when scholars came together and they went through the writings of the Dasam Granth, there was a consensus that they reached that these writings do not reflect entirely what Guru Gobind Singh Ji stood for
Okay.
all his life, what his persona was and what he believed in, and the examples that he set before us. So, certain sections of the Dasam Granth do not match that image of the 10th Guru. So in that sense, we do not accept it
Okay.
at par with the Adi
Adi
Granth,
Granth.
right? It is never going to happen that way. Now the reason is, firstly, Guru Gobind Singh Ji himself, right? He himself told us that only and only the Adi Granth
Granth.
has to be referred to as a Guru. Only believe in the authority of the Adi Granth. Now in the Adi Granth, he has not included any of his own sayings, right? Or his own poems,
Yes.
right? Shabads that we call. So he did write, of course we do have his writings, but then everything that is there in the Dasam Granth is not written by him. The reason is that the Guru was always moving from one place to another, and a lot of sections of his writings got lost on the way, and some mischievous elements added certain sections to the Granth,
Okay.
right, which under his name, which were actually promoting the Hindu element,
Okay.
Hinduizing, like in a sense, giving a Hinduist fervor
Yeah.
to the religion.
So I think that is also a reflection of how a lot of Hindus today
Yeah,
say
that has been happening.
that Sikhism has branched out of Hinduism.
No, Sikhism has branched out of Hinduism is a different thing, because when Sikhism came into existence, you didn't have Sikhism before that.
Yes.
You had Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists. So obviously, people who have become Sikhs have come from the other religions only.
Yes, yes.
Right.
But to
you
call
can't
it a
call
specific branch
you
of...
can't call it Sikhs today. There are books written with the title Hum Hindu Nahi. So when you are a Sikh, automatically you're not
You're
a
not a
Hindu.
Hindu,
Maybe
yes.
you were a Hindu before,
Yes.
but now you converted, or your forefathers converted. So you are no longer a Sikh. You're no longer a Hindu, right? So that element is there. Again, when people played along and added those derogatory, now a lot of those writings that were added are derogatory. They are derogatory, and it's not, even the language that is used is not something that Guru Gobind Singh Ji would have used. Considering his stature and his personality and what he stood for, that is impossible he would have used that language. And there are certain sections which are erotic in their meaning. You can't attribute that to the 10th Guru. And there are certain writings which are derogatory to the women as well, which cannot be
Which is not acceptable in
Which
Sikh.
cannot be accepted. So obviously there are scholars who sat down, people who have actually got authority into interpreting the Guru Granth Sahib, and who are well versed with the histories, contemporary histories of the time. when they have all gathered together, they have reviewed this document, they have found that these portions are not acceptable. Now coming to the name, the Dasm Granth. Dasm Granth, because we had the Adi Granth, right? So people, when they came to writings of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, they gave it the name Dasam Granth. There is no credibility to it.
Yes.
The Guru did not give it any sanction, right? If I am writing something, this is my work, I would want my name to go with it.
Yes.
But the Guru has not given his sanction to it,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So we can't depend on people giving importance to a certain element, so it can never be placed at par, in the Guru's own words.
Okay. So,
Right.
ma'am, two Sikh heroes that the Guru created during his life. One of them was Baba Deep Singh Ji,
Haan ji.
who I revere,
Yeah.
and another was Banda Singh Bahadur.
Banda Singh
So,
Bahadur.
ma'am, let's start with Banda Bahadur, and I have a few questions. I'll just ask you those questions, and then you can tell me what your perception of Banda Bahadur is. So, number one, I have been told this by many people, even my own mother, that at a certain level, during his time as the leader of the Sikhs, Banda Bahadur had developed an ego, and he wanted to see himself at par with the Gurus. But I have also read credible writers who say that the people around him wanted him to have a slightly higher stature than an ascetic, because they wanted their leader to look special. So, ma'am, number one, what is your perception of that? Which side do you fall on? And number two, what do you think about Banda Bahadur overall?
I think exemplary leader of the Sikhs, and nobody could match his bravery.
Yes.
Extremely brave, fearless, and I think he's a role model, exceptional leader, one of the exceptional leaders that we had. But then see, this is where when you fall a victim to your personal vices, then that's the reason the end was like that, and maybe the perception is like that. So a lot of Sikh scholars agree that Banda Singh Bahadur, his achievements are too good. I mean, they are like, they surpass every level.
Innumerable, actually.
Innumerable, and they are par excellence.
Yes.
What he's done. What he's done is after Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he has actually taken over the what do you say?
He galvanized the Sikhs.
Galvanized the Sikhs, and he gave them that support that they were looking for.
Yes.
And you wouldn't have had a better leader than him to continue with the good things that the Sikh gurus had started. But then towards the end, he did fall a victim to certain personal vices.
Okay.
That is what all scholarly works will tell you. And since we depend on sources of study, then we have to go to again an analysis there. So I think this is where people might commit some mistakes, and then that leads to their end.
So just a small question, ma'am. You
Yeah.
spoke of his personal vices. So during
the
my
ego element,
okay,
right? The ego that came in.
So during my study of Banda Bahadur a few years ago, so what I know about him is that he was an ascetic, and he was born a Hindu.
He was ascetic before,
Yes.
and then he came into the Guru's service.
The Guru came to his
Guru
ashram.
came to his ashram and
Yes.
took him under his patronage,
Yes.
whatever we can call it.
So,
And-
ma'am, sorry, my question is, do you really believe that somebody who had given up the whole world and was sitting in a corner in his own ashram, right, who saw the Guru and immediately knew this is the man who is going to give me the life and the path that I'm supposed to take, and then he became a warrior going against his own ideologies up till that point. So why do you think that kind of a man developed an ego? What was it about his situation?
Maybe because of the successes that they were having together. The Rakhi system had been started giving protection to the peasants.
Yes.
And the peasants going all out and praising you. See, all these factors do work at a certain level. I think he stuck some coins and he came
Yes.
out with certain things that the
He-
Guru had prohibited him
Okay.
from doing.
Okay.
But then he went ahead and did all that. So eventually this is something that we have been believing always, that individuals are not above the community
Yes.
or the organizations, right? So this certain things that were prohibited, he started doing those things, and maybe under the influence of a section of yes men or people who were praising him a lot, and then that is eventually what led to his downfall as well.
Okay.
Right? So you know why? Because we strictly believe in the philosophy of the gurus.
Yes.
If the gurus are prohibiting you from doing something, there has to be a reason.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think that answers that. Yeah.
And I'll go on to my personal favorite Sikh leader,
Right.
who is Baba Deep Singh Ji.
Right.
So Baba Deep Singh gained popularity to an immense degree at the Battle of Sarand, fighting next to Banda Bahadur, and that is when he was given the name of Zinda Shaheed,
Yeah.
because he fought like he had no sense of mortality holding him back.
Yeah.
Right, ma'am? And he was groomed by Guru Gobind Singh Ji.
Right.
So what was it about what was it about Baba Deep Singh Ji that set him apart from all of the other Sikh leaders?
I think it's that same thing, you know, that deep commitment to your mentor.
Yes.
Right? That deep sense of respect that you hold, the reverence that you have for your master, you know, the guru, not going beyond his word at all. I think it is from there that we derive strength. You know, this is where I come back to those mental issues now, mental health issues that we have today. On the other hand, you have these people right on the verge of death, on the brink of death. They are still not giving up because they are deriving strength from that hero that they have, you know,
Yes.
in their minds.
Yes.
And that heroism and that person is instilling in them the drive to go on, you know, to egg on.
Yes.
See, this is where we need to understand religion does a lot of good to you if you deal with it in the right way. But if the same religion takes a communal aspect, then we are feeling that what is happening today with us.
Would you agree with this statement? And this is something I've believed in since I was a teenager. Do you think religion today is not serving the purpose it was supposed to? And
Obviously,
it has been
because
weaponized?
people have not understood religion only. Problem is that the ordinary man, the layman, does not understand what religion is. For him, religion is what your priest tells you, what your elders tell you, what your family tells you. Where do we have people going directly to the source, picking it up and trying to understand that what is my guru telling me? Right? What is my God telling me?
Yes.
Where is that feeling is not there, that fervor is not there, and nobody has the time. So religion is, you type on Google what is religion, Google will tell you what is religion, and I'll pick up a definition that makes me happy, suits me.
Yes.
It's become a marriage of convenience.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So that is the reason you have so many problems. But if you ever sit down and read the works of people, scholars, or you just pick up your source, primary source, and try to understand ki what is dharma. Ashoka, Emperor Ashoka wrote about dharma. What is your duty?
Yes.
Religion is duty.
Yes.
Right? So if you're going to pick up these works and then you're going to read them, you form your own opinion. People are not opinionated. This is the problem. People carry other people's opinions.
Yeah, it is not their own opinion.
It's not their own
because
opinion.
it is not based in self-research.
They don't have a research. They don't have anything. Not going back to the original source.
Yes.
See, now in the case of women's studies also, since there is a limitation or a dearth of secondary sources, we go to the primary source, right?
Yes.
So primary sources are very important. Pick up your religion, you will be amazed at what it has to give you.
Regardless of which
Regardless of which religion you belong to.
Yes.
And there is so much of learning, all your questions are answered. You know everything, why something exists. See, we start with the questioning of Gautama Buddha. He had a set of questions which nobody could answer.
Yes.
And when he could answer them, you had Buddhism being born. Right? So every person is a seeker. That's why we are a Sikh. As a Sikh, you are a seeker. But are you seeking? That's the question.
And ma'am, just one last thing on Baba Deep Singh Ji. So there is a very famous story about him where there are two versions of it. So one version is in his last battle at the age of I think 70 with 35 kg khanda or a sword for people who don't understand Punjabi. So he was fighting, and one version is that his head was cut clean off and he picked it up in one hand and kept fighting.
In one hand, and he still fought, yeah.
And another version is that his head was almost completely cut off and he held it in place with his hand and kept fighting. Right. And there are many legends like this about the gurus and about Sikh heroes. So what do you think about that story, and what is your perception of it? Do you think it is reality, it is a miracle, or it is something that has been built?
Sikhism does not believe in miracles, firstly. So I think miracle factor cannot be there.
Okay.
But the second version makes more sense to me, that his head was literally cut off and he held it. That is possible.
Yes.
That is possible. Because see, these people were very tall, strong built, and they had a diet which we cannot even imagine today. It was so good. And the kind of weapons that they had, with that it is possible that a man of such a well-built stature can actually fight like that. But holding it on one hand, this is again the faith of the believers.
See, it seems exaggerated.
Yeah, it is exaggerated. Certain things are actually exaggerated. But then in that also you have the people, how they perceive these things, the artist's perception of it.
Yes.
And that is what gets seen when you see a painting or an image that has a greater impact upon you.
Yes.
So if you give two versions, the painting version is going to last longer.
Yes.
The visual interpretation is going to last longer, unless somebody picks up a work. And I don't know, are these versions supported by some historical narrative?
I am not sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely not sure.
So,
because nowadays, even when you read a book written by a writer, not all of their sources are dependable at all times.
So that source has to be clearly given. Where did this version come from? Because if it is an authentic version, a first-hand account, a witness account, is it a local story, tradition based on local tradition, hearsay, or does it have a contemporary historian writing about it? Maybe it could be stated in the Mughal records or any other contemporary official record for corroboration. Then we can go with it. Otherwise, the other version makes more sense.
Okay.
See, this is what happens when you are giving accounts of heroes and martyrs, because they have been killed and there is no survivor or nobody to tell you what happened. Writing skills are not as developed. When you're in the war zone, you're not carrying your books and pens to write down what happened. So a lot of element of suspicion comes there, that who wrote it, who presented this story. But there is no doubt that we are talking about a great man and a martyr. Now this is where he rose above the ordinary to an extraordinary league altogether, right? So something though has happened there, but how far it is true needs to be seen.
And ma'am, so when we talk about Baba Deep Singh Ji, there is an element of his life which is completely devoted to spirituality and Sikhism, and then there is an element of his life, and this is recorded, where when he went into battle, he displayed extreme rage, anger and aggression, which is something that all Sikhs had. But even out of those uncommon Sikhs, he was the most uncommon and the most lethal.
It comes to the same thing, how well you relate to your Guru.
Okay.
What's your equation with your Guru?
So my question is, ma'am, how did he, in your perception, how did he as a leader or as a man maintain that balance where he could have that kind of violence and aggression in him at one hand and then be spiritual on the other?
I think the cause for which you're picking up arms gives you that aggression. I guess if the cause is justified and you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, the people are heavily banking upon you, the community is looking up to you, right? So I think this is where you transgress to another level.
Okay.
So that is where your strength comes in from.
Okay.
So he could have done that.
Now, ma'am, what is your perception of Maharaja Ranjit Singh?
More recent ruler, and he gave a face to the Sikh race again by organizing them into a political entity, right? So I think again one of the visionaries of the time.
And ma'am, so he was the first person who brought all of these Sikh missiles together that were fighting everybody and even themselves, right, ma'am? So I have studied about him a little bit, but I want to know from an expert. So how do you think he managed to pull it off?
Again, exemplary skills, leadership, military skills, personal qualities. This is where you go beyond.
Because his own missile was not the biggest of the strongest.
Not the biggest of the
ones.
ones.
And he himself was not conventionally
But see, if you're a good
leader.
analyst, you can analyze things. You're comparing that if we become united, this is something that Genghis Khan also did.
Yes.
Right, his own tribe was all disorganized, but then he went on to create a Mongol empire, get all the different tribes together, unite them, and become the leader of that tribe.
Just by
there's a lot of similarity here.
Yes, just by explaining to them that we are
We have to be
stronger
united.
together.
We are stronger together,
Yes.
and because that was more of a sad scenario where they could just pick up anybody and go and attack the other tribe, and then he decided to put an end to all that by bringing all the tribes together. For that, he had to first conquer certain tribes,
Yes.
and then convince the others that you have to come into my protection. I think this is exactly here what he did. Decided to unite them all.
He also married into a rival missile.
Yeah, rival
right?
missile,
Yes.
and then used that as an advantage as
Yes.
well, the marriage alliance.
Yes.
So created the first Sikh empire,
Okay.
made the Sikhs into a political entity, giving them a space to live. See, everybody who will come in and contribute is going to come according to the need of the hour. Now, during the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the need was to give them a space to live, a space to call their own,
Yes.
because they had been living in bands in different places, mostly in hiding,
Yes.
right? So he had to give them a place where they would be secure, and that will only happen when they all come together.
When they have a kingdom.
Yeah, when they have a place of their own land.
Now, ma'am, another thing I want to ask you about Maharaja Ranjit Singh is that there is an aspect of his governing, his administration, which is brilliant, because he brought in a new financial system. He
Yeah.
brought in a completely new administrative system, the likes of which the Indian subcontinent hadn't seen before. And he used all of that to help his state prosper, right? But then there is another element to him where he had a huge harem, he had a lot of women, he had a lot of wives, he used to drink, he used to smoke opium. There are accounts of all of that, right? And there's actually a British account where a British mercenary tried his spiced rum, or the drink that he used to drink, and he said it knocked him out in two sips. And Maharaja Ranjit Singh drank that the whole day, every day. So how do you correlate these two elements, ma'am? From being a God-fearing man dedicated to God to having every possible vice.
He was also a ruler, na? Maybe. Yeah, rulers are like that. They have to have some personal space of theirs,
Yes.
right? So that is personal, professional is always different,
Okay.
right? So I think
You find that
excused.
acceptable
For
personally?
me, it is acceptable. Yeah, we are a liberal community. Yeah, it's okay as a person. See, Sikhism does not put so many restrictions on you, right? Especially, I think Guru Gobind Singh Ji has forbidden any kind of intoxicants.
Yes.
But then this is where, as a person, it is again, the Guru is not going to come and hold your hand. No,
Yes.
it is your personal reaction to it. So if you still continue with those things, although you are a Sikh, this is what I told you. Something the Gurus are telling you. There are a set of instructions that come straight from the Gurus. They're talking to you and telling you that these are the don'ts, these are the do's. But then as a person, at your family level or at your personal level, how much do you follow
Yeah.
is your personality.
There are a
right?
lot of religious people
Yeah.
who still ill-treat the women in their house, or
Yeah,
who
but
still
then he never hid anything, no?
Yes.
It was done openly.
Yes.
There are people who are something else inside and something else outside. There are two faces that they have.
and he was famously courteous even to the women in his harem.
Yeah,
He treated
actually,
all of
he
them
treated
as
them
wives.
well. So it's basically how you portray yourself,
Yes.
right? He's being honest enough that okay, this is this.
Yes. So, ma'am, okay, let's conclude this
Yeah,
with
yes,
one
yes.
last thing.
Haji.
That is your overall perspective on gender studies from a Sikh or Sikhism role or Sikhism perspective angle.
See, the only reason why scholars or writers or historians delve into gender studies is with the only mission that you are trying to educate the rest of the community that this is not supposed to be done
Yes.
to the women, you know. So if you're treating them in an unfair way, if you're being discriminatory, you are carrying stereotypes, or you're denying certain opportunities to your girls, then please stop doing it.
Yes.
Because this is not what the Sikh gurus would ever like or they would have ever promoted. So that is the reason we try to go back to the sources and we try to take out information from there and tell the people that, see, this is what the gurus are saying. This is simply what the reformers did in India when they started a women reformation movement. No, Raja Ram Mohan Roy or Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, they went to the sources and they said, see, Sati is not approved by the Vedas, Sati is not approved by the epics, so why are you practicing this? Right? So that is how change came about. So as scholars, as writers, as historians, as research scholars pursuing some course, the only perspective or the only vision that we carry is that if my study helps a certain number of people realize that they have to stop these practices, it's going to be a contribution to the community.
Yes.
In our own ways. Especially because when we carry these prejudices or we carry these stereotypes, for whatsoever reasons, whether the family believes in it, or this is how it has been in my house, or this is how we have been brought up, so you will also do the same. It affects the prospects of your future generations, and outrightly, you are denying certain opportunities to your girls. You're giving your boys certain opportunities, but the same opportunities you're not giving to the girls. I'm talking about education. In education also, people are going to laugh it off. Oh, I send my daughter to school. Exactly. You send your daughter to school, but how many of you are ready to spend 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs to help her pursue a professional degree,
Yes.
become a doctor, become an engineer, become an MBA, or any other course that she wants to do? We are not ready to invest. Why? Because she'll get married and she'll go to her husband's house. So should I make her capable of earning 4-5 lakhs that eventually will go to her husband? Right? This is the psyche that we carry at the ground level, at the practical level, and this is very sad because the religion tells us not to be materialistic, but all we think about is money. Right? We've not gone beyond it.
Yes.
So my daughter has to be 23, 24, she has to get married, that's it. But my boy, I can spend 10 lakhs on him, I can spend another 20 on him, right? That is okay because he's going to live here, no?
He's going to bring money into the house.
He's going to bring money into the house, and my money is an investment. I'm investing that money in my son, but I won't invest this money in my daughter. So outrightly within your family, you've created a gender divide.
Yes.
Right?
I've seen this, ma'am.
And that daughter is going to
around.
go somewhere and do the same thing. She'll carry the same ideas because
Yes.
daughters grow up watching the parents and then they become exactly that version of the parent.
Ma'am, do you believe that women sometimes become the worst enemies of other women?
See, this is, I don't
More
know
than men.
from where this has come, but women, I think this statement needs to change now.
Yes.
That women are the worst enemies of other women.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that is the only thing. What I'm asking
Yeah.
you is, do you think that happens sometimes where mothers have a certain ideology that is not good for their daughters, or say mothers have certain ideologies that they impose upon their daughter-in-law?
I think here also it's again the society structure because the mother has nothing to fall back upon, right? So she is totally dependent on the husband.
And she's
So
speaking from her own experience.
Yeah, and she's speaking from her own experience, and she just tries to do what will keep the husband happy. Otherwise, she's afraid that if I support my daughter in something, I'll be asked to leave the house, and where will I go? So she'll cut the wings of the daughter as well. That no, do what he says. Now here the women need to understand that you are in this position because you were not educated. So for your daughter to get a certain respect in the society, education is very important. You educate her so that she becomes economically independent and she will not have to put up with a nonsense of any kind, then later on. But then again, this kind of a vision will take time to come. Today slowly, eventually women are waking up to this idea. But then higher studies is a major issue because unless you're sending your daughters to for higher studies, in professional courses where you require more money, up till that time you won't find women occupying very top positions across India, because parents are not encouraging them. So as a result, if you're going to spend money on the boys go and occupy major positions, and then women are again lagging behind. See, Parliament, the Women Reservations Bill, is still pending.
Yes, ma'am.
Because men take decisions, they don't want women to come and obstruct those decisions.
Yes.
Right? And from where will these women come? If you're going to just take it as an objective that we have to marry them off and that's it. So from where are you going to have women in these leadership positions?
That's true, ma'am.
Right?
Ma'am, one last question for you. What would be the one piece of advice you would give to, say, somebody in their teen years or somebody in their 20s, especially women, since we
Especially
spoke
women,
of women?
actually very important, because our girls, our very young girls, from let's say 13 to 20 years, they're growing, they're going through many kinds of emotional variations, right? And there is no one that they can approach to for a very honest talk. And I feel here they should derive their strength from religion, firstly, seek answers from the religion, and be very strong girls. Women need to be very strong. I'm talking about emotional strength.
Yes.
They need to be strong emotionally. Emotional strength is going to come from your religion. Whichever religion you belong to, seek inspiration from your religious studies. I think this is very sad that we've stopped teaching religion. In our quest to be secular, but religion never makes us non-secular,
yes.
right? So there is a lot of good aspects that the religion has. Get your mental strength from the religion, and for your societal roles, get a good education. That will cater to your physical and your cultural aspects. Mental aspects, the religion will give you guidance.
Yes.
So education is very important. Educate the girls and give them the independence to choose what they want to study and which kind of jobs they want to take up. Don't clip their wings, don't stop them. See, sometimes we want our child especially for the girls, the options that we have is become a doctor, become a teacher, become a lawyer, right? But I don't think many parents encourage them from becoming models or going for Miss Indias or going into the movies. Why? Because we have certain prejudices, certain stereotypes. But if your daughter so badly wanted to try her luck into modeling or advertising or the movies, who knows, she would have immense talent which nobody ever imagined.
Yes, you
right?
Can't tell until somebody tries.
We have the example of Kangana Ranaut,
yes.
right? How her family did not want her to pursue it, but eventually you would have lost a good actress in the country, right? Had she followed the same societal norms. So when we have examples like these, politics, we don't encourage our girls to go into politics, right? And if you're not going to encourage them, why do you want all girls becoming doctors? Why do you want all girls becoming teachers? I mean, this is boring. Let them go and see where their talents are, right?
Of course.
We are not ready to give them the sky to explore, as a parent I decide. So I think this is where, irrespective of religion, irrespective of the community, this is how society treats its women, which is very sad. Give them a chance to explore. They might do much better beyond your expectations.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
I think this has been a great episode, and I think we spoke more than we had thought we would.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed speaking to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for teaching us about so many things, especially with regard to Sikh religion.
Oh, it's an honor, and my apologies if I've made some errors there.
No, not at all, ma'am.
But yeah.
See, the whole point of this was to have a free-flowing conversation
Right.
with you, and
Right.
I'm very grateful that you took out time to sit with me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
ma'am.